regular teams, the link is going to be shared outward with the Butte listserv that we have. So they'll be able to join, but Mackenzie will be manning the mute options and not mute options. So still the same expectations for publicly observable and versus those participating in the meeting.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to dive right into our safety moment. We had a recent snowstorm, so now I think it's time to mow our yard. So snow melted on Sunday. It was pretty nice yesterday. So just a few tips, or just really reminders that mowing your yard is pretty routine thing, and we tend to normalize it. And before you know it, we're out there wearing flip flops and no eye protection, no hearing protection, and we're pushing the mower past maybe kids playing in a sandbox or something. So just be cognizant of your surroundings and the weather conditions. Make sure to wear appropriate footwear. Some sunglasses at least, polycarbonate, preferably, so it's shatter resistant. Protect your hearing, and when I protect my hearing, it's usually putting earphones in, then turning up the volume high enough to where it drowns out the mower, and I don't know that that's exactly productive. So again, just be diligent with routine tasks, really, and don't normalize those. Remember that there's always a risk associated with it. And, I've seen injuries to kids in the past where they've taken rocks to the eye in my hometown and we're blinded in one eye. So, that's the thing I always tend to look out for is others first, and then do that. And then don't forget to think about your own well-being and safety. So post those shoes, make sure your mower has emergency shut off. Don't fuel it when it's hot. Check your surroundings. Always do the walk across the yard. Make sure there aren't any unexpected rocks from your kids moving them, or like my dogs bringing them into the yard, pretending that they're balls or whatever. So be patient, be diligent, take care of yourself and your neighbors. Okay, I'm going to move into the agenda. I think this goes to Scott. So Scott, are you able to present?
Yep, I am. Folks seeing my screen? Great. So added some color coding since the last version of this, where yellow is a 2-week look ahead per our agenda. Orange is 3 months out, and then red is what we're waiting for agency approval on. So just site-wide documents, jumping into that, we've got surface water QAP upcoming here, a couple DSRs, surface water and groundwater DSRs, and then a couple data evaluation reports for both surface water and groundwater. One question, I know last time we talked about the 2024 groundwater monitoring QAP that we submitted in November. I hadn't seen anything yet on that. Is that still in process?
It's still in process. Yeah, it's something I'm hoping to be able to get out back to you guys in the next couple of weeks. I think we just needed to have some agency conversations prior to resubmitting that. So resubmitting our comments back to you guys. So apologize for the delay on that one.
Yeah, no worries. And we did just, so everyone's aware, we did just complete our spring sampling event. We just completed it according to the network from last year.
Okay, that sounds great.
And the other one is tech specs that that was submitted by Kleinfelder in late April. That was
Yep, we're still working away on that one.
Great. And let's see, we've got a couple upcoming submittals here. The greener cleanup report is right around the corner, and the materials management plan is right around the corner as well.
I'll give an update on green cleanups. I've started my review, so hopefully that'll be pretty painless for everybody. And one thing that I don't think we resolved internally is which attachments. So I'm probably going to circle back with you and Reese to make sure we're attaching what's necessary and value added to the project. So then maybe since I'm going on materials management plan, it's our hope to have that out within 4 weeks type time frame. I would say no longer than 6. It's something that's, I think really driving all the work and project and the entire process. So it's definitely one of our priorities.
And then there's a couple QAPs and O&M plans coming out later. Moving on to Grove Gulch.
Back to the claps real quick. Those kind of fall into those site-wide documents. I'm just gonna check in with Karen real quick before we move on. Karen, I know you've been busy and I think you submitted one internally, right?
Yeah, so the CQAP is internal, the construction monitoring CLAP. We have a meeting internally the first week of June on both those documents.
Okay, so mid-July is reasonable to you or not?
Yeah, I tied that with when Buffalo Gulch was expected to go to agencies, assuming we'd want those documents going with Buffalo Gulch's 95.
And then I'll speak to the OM&M plan, not to print on the hot seat. We just kind of finalized our scope for the entirety of the OM&M plan, and our approach is similar to Old Works Golf Course in Anaconda, where, you know, a lot of those features are, let's call them inland use features, not necessarily integrated with the remedy, no touch points and then no impact on the remedy. We'll have like an inland use or a park maintenance component to it and a remedy specific maintenance component to it. So we're gonna start working on that. We're using the Old Works Golf Course kind of as a template and then kind of blending it with some of the Butte Hill education items, the Breeze program, but fitting it for riparian application because a lot of the areas we have are riparian. So it's going to be a big document, but confident Tech team will deliver a quality document. So.
Yeah, and Emily, I guess that date that's included in there of 6/28, I know I thought I updated it on the last on what I sent you earlier last week. That'll be pushed out. So
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have an idea there, Brent?
It's going to be a few months. Let's just say that.
So 8/28.
yeah, I think what I put in was like 9/1, but that was just based on some quick discussions with Josh and I. So
Gotcha. Okay. Moving on to Grove Gulch, we got the RD work plan, PDI work plan updates, and the 100% ROP submittal that were submitted at 3/22.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful that we will be able to get that out very soon. I know I've been saying that for the last couple of weeks. And I've been working with CDM to get together because I think at this point we're aiming for having a letter back to you that has some comments just on what we saw that were not totally addressed from the comments of the 95%. And so we're just wrapping that up. And then be sharing it with DEQ for concurrence too. And so I think we're very close, and hopefully we'll have a better update for you after I was out yesterday. And so I'll hopefully have a better update for you in the coming days.
Great. Exciting.
Yeah.
When we see it, I guess we'll take a look at those comments and start working on our pre-mob kind of activities with the agencies. So
yeah,
probably going to bombard you with a series of meeting invites.
Okay.
Whether it be working on general submittals or pre-mobilization plans or kind of authority to proceed kind of activities.
Okay.
So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I think all of us, but yeah.
Moving on to the repository, we just have a few documents that are upcoming here. The Colorado or the geotech PDI work plan and Corda, I know I saw you on. That's coming up here. The date that I had in here was today. Is that correct, Corda?
I can speak to it. We've got internal comments drafted and we've scheduled a meeting with the agency teams, I believe, for tomorrow. The doodle poll. So Ramsey will take a quick look at those. You know, I think it's kind of easy comments. geotech plan. I think it's just gonna be nice just to discuss them, finalize the responses, resubmit. And then the one thing that's contingent on me is the access agreement. I saw that Jeremy's on. Jeremy, I'm probably just gonna forward that to you and Mark. Get signatures, or maybe I'll just sign it and then send it to you guys for counter signatures, but I think that's pretty well done and dusted.
Yep, no, I concur. Just get it our way and we'll final once over and get it countersigned.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
Maybe adding to that.
Yeah, I don't know that it's gonna impact our mobilization necessarily, anything that's going on. Or do you have a different thought, Brand?
No, I think we're still set on June 10th. I think is our target for mobilization or actively starting, and you know, little pre-stuff the week before training, things like that.
And core, just on the haul route final design and then the repository 30%, they were color coded orange on here. Was that meant to be that TBD is somewhere around 3 months out?
Yeah, I'll let Josh take the 30%. The haul route improvement. I think that's another one we need to talk about, you know.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that, you know, the repository final recommendations that we're continuing to make into the agency is our schedule kind of drives all the work activities. We're kind of doing some work at risk, really, which is okay, to try to be in a good position for what we anticipate to happen. But to do a 30% repository design now with multiple locations and not knowing like waste quantity distribution, like if we're managing it, let's just say 1 million yards, if, you know, 850,000 cubic yards can go into the pit and 150 has to be dry versus 500, just totally changed the dynamics. So I think the materials management plan, like I mentioned earlier, is really critical for Atlantic Richfield to finish, get in, having under consideration so we can do that materials balance, really to say what wastes go where. And then we can really start to circle back to some of these items to know how critical the haul road is to have, or to know how much material can go into the pit and what quantity we need to design for in the dry. So materials management plan is really driving.
So that 30% is being partially talked about
Yeah.
to develop, or it's.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
we've ran like conceptual gradings and stuff multiple times, right? I mean, whether that was at the entire Kelly Mine area, you know, whatever, back in October, or reduced scope like Kelly Mine area, C&E, what's left over in Butte Mine Waste Repository. One thing we haven't really tackled as of yet is like what we call it, a deposition analysis within the Berkeley pit to see how these materials may flow out of a discharge barge or in a pipe system, and what that alluvial fan or stockpile would look like as it drifts down through the water column. So still got a few questions to answer on that. But again, the only location that we're confident will accept all the waste is in full quantity is the Berkeley pit, but our assumption is some of that material is going to be unslurryable, right? You know, we're still going to have to segregate some of the municipal waste and take the refrigerators and stuff out of the landfill and all the in-betweens, right, that aren't necessarily favorable for slurry and maybe not refrigerator or toaster oven sized. So yeah, materials management plan on really all of those is what's driving.
Good. Josh. Moving on to Buffalo Gulch. We've got our 95% ROP, and I should say our PDA and RD plan or plan updates. Those are coming mid-July. We're in 7/19 now. For the subdrain pump station upgrades, that's 30% deliverable there is a ways out. BRW,
Please,
Got,
was that December 2020?
yeah, should be 24.
gotcha.
That's on my end, sorry.
We can blame it on Troy, isn't he responsible for that? He's not.
I'll take it, Karen.
Thanks for catching that. For BRW, there's PDI phase 3 upcoming. Right, Karen?
Yep.
In July, and then phase 2 demo. Anything else to talk about? BRW?
Just that our intent is to roll in any corrective work with this, the flag wall into this phase 2.
Okay. Phase 2 demo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a deal. We just, don't want to mobilize our contractor multiple times. We'll just get them in there when they're ready to do all the phase 2 work. That's what I think anyway. Karen, is that, you looking at me like I changed my mind?
No, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
I need to talk where the plan to do whatever we're doing with that slide wall is included.
With you, I haven't talked to you about that yet.
Me too. That's the look.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Great. Moving on to Diggins East, targeting a 95% submittal, following the 60% submittal that was made for 423. Any thoughts on the 423 submittal?
No, just that I think we're looking to have a meeting, and I can't remember if I sent out a poll or not for a Diggins East get together. No, I think I did, because I saw some HC folks vote on it. I definitely don't have everyone voted on it because the poll hasn't closed, or I haven't seen a meeting scheduled. So if you're seeing a poll for the Diggins East kind of design review or presentation of 60% package, really it's just intended to be an overview and to look at the Free South checklist. Please take a look at that poll and vote. I think it was last week, if not the week before.
Moving on to the groundwater remedy optimization. Brent, there's a couple work plans and QAPs upcoming.
That's correct, Scott. Yeah, we're ironing out a few details internally, and we hope to be able to get that to EPA by the end of the month.
For hydraulic control, couple months out here for PDI evaluation and 30% basis of design.
Yep, and we're still on track there.
I'm sorry, didn't hear you, Brent.
On track.
On track, cool, thank you.
Yep.
And Northside tailings, really tracking towards the 60% out towards the end of the year. Troy, anything to mention there?
No, I don't think so, Scott. We're planning for that.
And then Copper Mountain, just looking at that phase 1 data center report in July here. Anything to add there?
No, I don't think so. We're shooting for internal mid-June, so I think by the time we get it to you guys, it'll be July.
That's everything, Josh.
Okay. I just saw a question from Ian. Ian, we'll come back to that when we get to it in the detailed discussion.
There's another one about.
Yeah.
Is he a member of the? Okay, so I think
we can address it when we get down to BRW. It's fine. Okay, so I think it goes back to me now, right? Sure. Okay, Lexington wetlands, I'll just go through this pretty quick. We're not working this week down there. Putting out some materials to arrive and get a few smooths pushed through, and then I think we're gonna attempt to begin work again on Tuesday. For weed management, I do have an initial weed management plan to address the early termination down there. So I'm gonna review that. I've got it in my box and take care of that in results in a suitable seed bed or place to seed what we want there. You need to manage weeds for 2-3 years afterward. Moving on to Butte reduction works, interim demolition activities, phase 2 planning. To answer one of the questions in the chat, we have a list of approved contractors that we utilized to implement the work that have master service agreements that do work on behalf of the line Richfield. So they have put all this work out to bid, and we've selected our CMGC and Jacobs. Jacobs has been teaming with Quasi Excavating to perform the work. As far as phase 2 planning, Karen's been preoccupied with kind of getting this up and lifted with some data gap investigations and also different support activities. So again, we'll work to finish this and get it out later in the summer. And we'll also integrate post plan for mitigation of the slag wall that was demoed beyond the project boundary, which, to begin with, of course, we'll just finish that work and then address, the surface conditions. So I don't know, Karen, if you have anything else to add on that topic or not, but so later this summer, I'm not going to put too much pressure on Karen, just enough to keep her around or to not run her off. Casey Street water line. I haven't heard much on this for a bit, so I'm going to turn it over to the Jacobs team to give us an update on Casey Street water line activities.
Sure. So we're in the process of contracting with Helena Sand and Gravel. That's going well. We sent over this morning to Larry Hancock with Butte Silverbow Water Department a draft application for UPRR. I'm sorry, somebody say something?
No.
Okay. And so that's in the works. And so once, we kind of get approval. So we're sitting at the Butte Silverbow because largely this is their system. And so long-term, it makes sense for them to be on the easement, I guess, for the pipeline. And so we sent that over. We've talked with them about it. So hopefully it's a pretty minor review, getting that approved. And so once that's approved by Butte Silverbow, we'll submit it to Union Pacific Railroad, and then hopefully get that process started with them to. And again, I think we anticipate that's probably 2 to 4 weeks from there.
Great. Couple of update items for me for the audience. Atlantic Richfield is elected to go ahead and replace the service lines to the foundation and also the meters within each residential property, assuming that they provide us access. So, Cord, I don't know if I can work access agreements with, or we can work them with Kyle for each of those respective lands to see if
Yeah.
willing to let us in. I guess that's the first step, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll coordinate that with Kyle and Josh. We have a draft agreement, but if you'd rather it be a Atlantic Richfield agreement, we're fine with that as well.
Either way, yeah, I'm fine either way. On the work, so it's probably as appropriate for you to do it as for Atlantic Richfield.
Okay.
And the other thing, Scott did share the public notice with me yesterday after we were discussing on call. So I'll take that draft public notice. I think that was done on the project, and we'll use it to provide text for Casey Street, Grove Gulch, and we'll get that. What we've done in the past is just kind of canvas impacted neighbors. And then, of course, we posted on BPSOU.com. And I can't remember, Eric, if we've ever posted them on BSB social media or BSB's county webpage too. But yeah, it's well received for us. Just going knocking on doors. It seems like people are just appreciative of being told what's going on. So we'll continue to do that for both Casey Street and Grove Gulch.
Josh, you want me to send that to Troy then?
Oh, yeah, please do.
Yep.
Please do. I don't think there's anything else on Casey Street. Or any anticipated date of MOB on that?
It's probably mainly dependent on that access really from Union Pacific Railroad. I think once we get it submitted and really engage in those conversations, we'll have a better idea probably here in the next week or so. So I think we can give a better update, here shortly, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to Grove Gulch, we discussed the small review. It's with Emma and her team, looking, within a week or two-ish.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we'll dive into the pre-MOB submittals. So I know our team's been putting those pretty hard internally, getting them into a position that is suitable for sharing with the agencies, particularly some of those plans. I know that we're going to really focus in on some of the environmental components, like, for example, the surface water pollution prevention plan, risk control plan, and other items. And of course, one thing that with Grove Gulch that may have deviated, and I'm not sure that we necessarily caught it yet, from what we've seen, is I believe some of those performing work on Excelsior Avenue, which was our proposed haul route. And we don't want to cause more traffic congestion on Excelsior if there's active construction activity going on. So I believe our intent remains to just stockpile the BRW. Any of the materials we excavate from Grove Gulch, stockpile the BRW, and then manage it with the waste of BRW once we excavate those, so we don't have additional traffic pressure on Excelsior.
Right.
If they're doing paving activities or curbing gutter activities, whatever they may be doing. So I think we'll need to submit that as an RFC to the design.
Yep.
And then adjust our traffic control plan in response. So, Eric, I don't know, I know you're on, but I haven't been traveling Excelsior to see the extent of construction activities on Excelsior as of yet. So I don't know.
Josh, Eric's unavailable right now, but I believe they're just starting to kind of get traffic control and things like that put up on Excelsior.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, if they're starting to install traffic control, they're going to be busy within 2 weeks.
And it's planned to go throughout the summer.
I think it's a pretty substantial project, if I remember right. I remember them planning it, as long as 2 years ago. And so we can always
Josh,
yeah,
this is Josh Vincent. Yeah, it's a multi-block total rebuild. It's similar to the scope that they did last year, just the next section to the south. So yeah, it'll be pretty well torn up, that section, for the summer.
thanks, Josh. That's appreciated. So it just doesn't make sense if they're actively doing that work for us to haul past it. So I guess what we propose is this stockpile Grove Gulch at heat reduction works, maybe where we just demo the furnace foundation during phase 1 demo. Leave it until we can get to it with BRW.
Yeah, I think an RFC, and that can be something we can talk about to brainstorm what makes the most sense to do.
Construction kickoff is, kind of contingent on notification
Yeah.
from EPA. So again, we'll have a series of meetings that we roll out once we see the EPA's response to the 100% submittal. And then, as we get closer to knowing when we're going to mobilize, we'll of course submit those public notifications that we just spoke about too. So any additional discussion on Grove Gulch or questions? All right, moving down to repository. I don't know that I have too significant of it, but well, I guess I do. We submitted the final repository siting report on May 1st. We did follow that up with a presentation to the council commissioners. I think that was last Wednesday. It's a dated agenda, apologies. And then, I still am trying to get on the books for CTEC presentation. I guess effectively what the final report stated is that we're proposing to move 4 locations through on for additional detailed evaluation within step 5 of the screening study process that was put out in June 2020 by EPA. So in step 5, what I consider that is a lot of technical investigation, kind of determine the suitability of each respective location to receive waste. So we are in process of planning and looking forward to mobilizing for geotechnical investigation. It really focuses on Kelly Mine area C and E, locations along the south ramp, couple locations within the Shields Avenue location that's sandwiched in between the polishing plant and Montana Resources offices, and also a few locations along what could be a potential slurry system alignment, assuming that the Berkeley pit is determined suitable to receive waste. So a lot of things in process there. Some other activities that we've been doing recently, we formed I'd call it kind of a screening level cost analysis that we submitted to EPA to support their review of the proposed change from utilization of a dry repository, mine waste repository versus, effectively a wet repository, the Berkeley pit. And we're working on a few other documents internally. One is a ARARS analysis that we look forward to submitting in a couple weeks. Other than that, I don't know that we have anything going on. Oh, geochemical evaluation. Still keeping that one pretty tight to the chest until we kind of know what's going on there. And then as soon as we have a higher level of comfort with our findings, then we'll probably propose something more formal, I would say, for the EPA. So we're just not getting out over our skis. We have some kind of internal confidence of what we're proposing to do there. The data gap analysis.
Yeah, the data gap QAP, we started the work last week. They finished Buffalo Gulch. We'll finish North Side today. And we're drilling both at BRW with O'Keefe this week and Diggins East with Pioneers GeoProbe. And the test pits are planned to be done starting on Tuesday of next week, and we'll go all week. We're shooting to finish everything by the end of next week. Okay.
It's quick.
Doing our best.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. So I think that's all I really had. I guess I could move down through this. I don't know. With the materials management plan coming out in middle of June to late June, I think that'll just be another piece of information for the HC's consideration as we continue to wade through this process, really delineate or what it will propose waste acceptance criteria for each respective location. Of course, it'll discuss management of materials on site, whether they be clean import or on-site clean fill or on-site materials that don't meet table 2 or 3 criteria, et cetera, et cetera. So stay tuned for that document.
In that document is, I guess, the materials management plan, the one that was scheduled to be provided to us here shortly. The plan is to include waste acceptance criteria, materials balance for all of the repository locations, or that'll be updated as these field investigations for repository locations are being completed. I guess what's the?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of seem like
a cart and horse game.
Yeah.
I think what's most important to get out there is those waste acceptance criteria.
Okay.
And that'll help us determine volumes and if any additional expanded investigation is necessary. For example, maybe the Berkeley pit is only determined to be suitable for disposal of 200,000 cubic yards of waste. Well, now we've got 800,000 cubic yards of waste materials that needs to go into a solid location. And we haven't quite accounted for that even in our investigations yet, So we'd have to expand our investigations, do more detailed evaluation, and continue to grow the program as we.
Okay. Okay.
Or I wouldn't say grow the program, adapt.
Yeah, I think I understand. Okay.
Any additional questions, comments, or discussion associated with repository activities? Step 5, which effectively concludes the working component of the repository site study. And then at the end of step 5, we make a recommendation to the EPA. And step 6 includes the repository science study, and that's where EPA considers the recommendations from the settling defendants for the locations, receives additional public feedback. There's certainly one component of community engagement in there, and then makes the decision.
Yeah, and I could just provide two for the update. We're still working on a change in decision document. And I think it's also, I mean, it's similar to the work you guys are doing too, where there's a lot of things we got to sort out in order to be able to finalize that. And so I think some of the conversations with MR and some of the conversations with you all are going to help us continue to work on that, which we're doing. So I'm doing a lot of coordinating with our project manager for BPSOU as well, since if the Berkeley pit is selected, we're understanding what that means for decision documents on BPSOU, if anything changes within BPSOU too. So still plugging away.
Thank you. Moving on to Buffalo Gulch, I'll kick it over to Scott and team.
Yeah, we're really progressing towards that mid-July, 95% submittal. I don't think we've got really any questions on the comments that we received on the 60% submittal. Yeah, I think everyone's aware we had some data that was collected in early January for our geotech report. That additional data that was collected really is to inform the consolidation of in dewatering activities as related to dewatering activities adjacent to BNSF property and Silver Lake and Leachville water lines. So that data is kind of in process, and we're getting that data back. It's informing our excavation that we're finalizing here. That's pretty much the last thing that we're putting the final top on our design for. So that targeting that July submittal.
Any questions for Woodring current team on Buffalo Gulch? Additional thoughts? All right, on to Diggins East. I got Joe on the phone.
Yeah, we're awaiting agency comments on the 60 and progressing the 95% submittal for a September submittal.
I think one of the most significant changes you'll see between 60 and 95 is the forebay. Never quite got to where I wanted to be with the forebay, and then after additional discussions with members of our OCC, I think there's an opportunity there to maybe combine a couple features that would be within the Upper Silver Creek channel. So we've got one hand sketch from me that the engineers are probably looking at and thinking I'm crazy, but so we'll move through that. And that'll be something definitely for folks to watch out for. There's one other item that's slipping. I'll bring it up.
Sorry, you said that's the biggest change between the 60 and the 95%?
That's so far what we've identified.
Okay.
Does that change in the Diggins East or North Side tailings?
This submittal, you would see the changes, summary bullet list in the cover letter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's already a change from the submittal that we did receive.
Oh, we're working.
That could be anticipated for the 95.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there's summary bullet list on some items that we're already anticipating in that cover letter for 60.
Okay.
So if you looked at the cover letter, you'd see stuff that we know will change from 30 to 60, and then the stuff that we're anticipating, or we were anticipating, and this is one of them that Josh is talking about.
Yeah, that was on Diggins East before, but
Copy that.
I just received a request for people who are participating online that if, as you speak, if we're in the room, just to say your name before you speak. People are having a hard time understanding who's speaking.
This is Josh. Any other?
I have a quick question. Was there any, this is Emma. Is there any update on access for like the work issue, access issues that were going on there?
No updates from last month.
Okay,
Still working that internally and with the landowners that kind of about the project area, but good progress on most and still working on a few.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to north side tailings. I believe this will go to Troy.
This is Troy Colvin with Pioneer. I guess as far as the general schedule, like we mentioned before, we're shooting for a December submittal. The remaining investigation work, Josh, I haven't talked to Kyle for a bit. We did have a call with UP regarding getting access there, and I guess that's been several weeks. I haven't heard anything back.
Okay.
So as far as I know, we don't
I'll
have
follow up
access.
with Kyle on both that access agreement and then other property items. And I think, maybe I'll begin extending our invitation to Kyle for this call.
who is Kyle?
Kyle's our lands manager.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I don't have any other updates, just moving through the 60% design.
That was anticipated in December, Troy.
December, right?
All right, great. All right, moving down to Butte reduction works. We've covered quite a bit on it already, but Karen, any items we omitted that you want to discuss?
No, this is Karen with Pioneer. Just general schedule, the team's working on the PDIER right now, trying to get that buttoned up for a July. It's a middle date. Moving along with the design as we can, balancing resources and some changes. Looking for a November submittal date for the 60% for BRW. And then also working on that interim work plan phase 2 that we've already discussed.
Thanks. Any questions for Karen around Butte reduction works? One item that we didn't have, and it's related to all the projects, in particular when I was speaking about the 4-bay east, is getting everybody together and coordinating. He's having a discussion to map out our plan for no-rise evaluations with Julia, with the county. Our anticipation was to do the exercises as required to meet the substantive requirements, like we did at Grove Gulch, and make sure we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed. But I do think a coordination meeting would still be good.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, maybe I'll reach out to, I think, the FEMA contact that worked with us on Grove Gulch too, and maybe just start an email chain with all of us and coordinate something in the next month or so.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly appropriate. I don't know. You won't see anything from us. Well, we'll want to coordinate the activity set associated with the notarized evaluation with Dickens East prior to submittal, of course, but that's kind of our next big one.
Yeah, I think it would be good to just talk through all of the remaining projects and kind of a status of where they're at and where that process is at for the evaluation, and make sure that that is in alignment with what FEMA would want to see as well. Yeah.
Down through GWR and Blacktail Creek. Brent, I'll turn these over to you, and I know Ian, you had a question on Blacktail Creek, so if you want to raise that.
No, and
okay.
Thanks, Josh. I guess just to answer Ian's question, I believe what you saw was the BTL stress test work plan. That's due at, we're shooting for the end of this month, but like we indicated, we just have a few things that we got to iron out here first. But we're hoping to get that in. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that wasn't. I guess it was GWRO. I saw on that, so I thought I confused it with Blacktail Creek.
Yep, no worries. So just again a general schedule update. Oh, sorry. Someone say something.
No.
Okay. Site-wide groundwater model update. So we're updating the model as we're addressing the PDI ER comments for the Blacktail Creek hydraulic control. I know that we had a groundwater model scrum a few weeks ago where we went through some of those updates and then we're making those simultaneous to the actual response to comments. So I envision that we're going to have an update to the actual model in June. So that's forthcoming. And with that said, I guess that's going to be, once we're comfortable with the model update and everybody has alignment and bought in on its use and functionality, then we'll turn some focus to using that model to determine what our post-remedy groundwater monitoring network looks like with all of the corridor projects complete. Leak detection and monitoring system. Again, we've had some collaboration recently, a scrum for that. We're working through that process. Just as a high-level summary, what we're shooting for is that leak detection monitoring system is going to provide a program-wide approach to determining any type of leakage from the basins themselves. So I realize that there's going to be components that are further along. And so what I think our approach will be, it'll be somewhat evergreen. But, as remedies are brought on, we'll, adjust as needed. But we're hoping to get that to the agency here pretty quickly. I know we've got a call to talk about it today. And, so hopefully within the next month, we can get that out just for review. And then last is the BTL stress test, and we talked about that. We're hoping to have a work plan, 5/31 towards the end of this month. It might slip just a little bit depending on how quickly we can align ourselves internally with a few remaining comments.
Brent, just for benefit of folks on the phone, could you just, I can too, but you might do it better. Just why we're doing the BTL stress test and kind of what the scope of that work is.
Yeah, no, sure, Josh. So the BTL stress test. So we proposed that. So Stantec completed a pilot scale or desktop scale evaluation on the capacity, both chemical and physical capacity of the BTL treatment lagoons. Through that evaluation, we estimate that there's, approximately 1,700 to 1,750 gallons per minute capacity. But again, that was from a desktop setting. We did collect some sediments from BTL, so we did some characterization of the type of material that was flocculating, and so it was a little bit more than just a desktop study. But what we want to do is test that desktop evaluation using a real pilot test where we're going to use pumping wells from Blacktail Creek, from the pumping well that's established already there, 2 pumping wells from BRW, and then also we're going to augment some water from West Camp. So the idea is that we're going to it's going to be a 6-week total test that we will, send approximately, it'll be stepwise. So, we'll operate as baseline. We're going to increase the flow rate to the BTL for the first 2 weeks, and then we'll increase it again for 2 weeks, and then we'll stress the system with the final capacity of 1,750 the following 2 weeks. So 3 2-week periods. And the idea is that we're going to be collecting data not only on BTL, but also on, flow paths and conditions, interactions between, the subdrain at BTL, Blacktail Creek, Silverbow Creek. And then we also have the ability to look at BRW and just, determine a little bit more for a longer 2-week period test. some of the changes and conditions that might affect the hydraulic control system, potentially later down the line.
Thanks, Brent. That was great. Any questions for Brent on groundwater remedy optimization? I was talking with Brent yesterday. It's one of those tasks or projects within our program, or whatever you want to call it, portfolios, that I think is gonna need more attention, similar to how we're beginning to manage EI&C, for example. Instrumentation controls and communications kind of touch every site. And we're beginning to work that as kind of a larger engineering team internally. I think we're going to begin to do the same with groundwater remedy optimization, because like Brent said, even the leak detection and monitoring system is meant to cover all the project sites. The post remedy groundwater monitoring network covers all the sites, of course. So we're going to make sure we've got team representation from each project site in the room, so we can really make sure that we have a comprehensive, well understood objective internally. And then when we turn those around, hopefully they all make more sense to the agencies and the community as well. So thanks, Brent. Back to you with the BTC.
Yeah, this one just we talked about it generally, but we're working through the PDI ER comments for Blacktail Creek pumping test and incorporating that into the site-wide groundwater model. Again, we're hoping to get those comments back, I think by July 1st. I think we have that. And then, moving from there, we're also in parallel paths developing the 30% design submittal. And so we hope to have that to the agencies a few weeks after submittal of that PDI ER. So currently scheduled for the middle of July.
Thanks, Brent. Any questions for Brent on Blacktail Creek hydraulic controls? All right, I think, like Brent said, I think we've got the internal review buttoned up. The solid 30% submittal, and that turned around when we can. Program plans. We spoke about the technical specifications. They've been submitted, meant to cover all projects within the Operable Creek Conservation Area. Just trying to look for efficiencies here instead of submitting, single set for Grove Gulch, single set for Buffalo Gulch, et cetera, et cetera. So if there's any deviations from that, I think we've spoken to it. We'll have supplemental specifications or call out explicitly on the design drawings, if there's a new fitting or something for a valve assembly or something, it'll be right on the drawings versus having to go back and amend those programmatic plans. So hopefully that results in some overall improvements with the program, making sure we have continuity between each project set. We don't want, clay valves at one location and whatever Rosemont at another location. We just want everything to be from the same menu. Karen is taking lead on the CQAP and construction management QAP. Again, we've got an internal submittal of the CQAP, and we're working through that. And when that time, we'll turn around to the CM QAP. And like Karen said, we anticipate getting those out in mid-July, which is also when we anticipate seeing Buffalo Gulch. So you'll have tech specs in hands, the QAPs in hands, and new 95% submittal plan for Buffalo Gulch in hands, which make the review process melt together. You'll have all the necessary documentation, I guess. Materials management plan, we kind of discussed this in detail. And shooting for 4 weeks is an optimistic goal, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's more of a 6-week kind of deal. And again, I think the most critical component of the materials management plan are those waste acceptance criteria. We're utilizing the existing waste acceptance criteria from the Butte Mine Waste Repository. It's kind of our basis. And knowing that, it's a little bit different when things are in the dry versus going to a proposed wet closure in the perfect pit. So we're working that internally, and of course, coordinating with Jeremy and Mark at Montana Resources too. O&M plan, again, Brent and I, we just kind of refined our scope. This is intended to address project areas within the Silver Creek Conservation Area, and there's really two components to the plan. One would be the in-land use features, or the amenities that are being installed, and the other being associated with the remedies. So it's gonna be a significant lift to kind of get this finalized. Then, one other item that, is kind of pestering Brent about, or, maybe it should pester the engineering teams too, is having kind of a shakedown operational and functional plan in place. For example, I can't remember what it's called in the freeze-out, but once we have agency approval that the work is significantly complete at Grove Gulch, then there is 2-year operational functional period. So we'll need some kind of plan in place to describe, shakedown plus O&F activities for that 2-year period. And after that 2-year period is complete, the KRECCRs are submitted for all sites. So Grove Gulch will probably have 0 to 2 year shakedown period plus, let's just call it like 2 or 3, years of just for operational, functional, or interim O&M. Once we get all projects done and submit the KRECCR, and that's approved, then we start that compliance determination period, like the 9 to 12 years of the compliance determination period. So in addition to the O&M plans, we'll have to have these interim shakedown O&F plans. For your cleanups, that's in my inbox. I've actually got it open on my computer. I'm going through that text now. Assuming I get through it. We reiterate that document a few times, and all the design teams have had their hands on it. So once I get through it, I think it'll be good to go and head out. I can't remember where to go. So, yeah. Any questions on program plans? Did I miss any? That's still kind of the list of program plans. I think that's. Okay. On to Emily and Copper Mountain.
We are shooting for an internal submittal of the DSR mid-June, so I think we should be able to get that to you guys in July. I think we've talked about it before, but that'll just include all of the data that's been collected at Copper Mountain to date. So some of it is being evaluated against the BPSOU existing data QAP. Because we, responded to what was going on out there with the SEEPs prior to having agency approved QAP in place. We had to go through the scope of work and everything before we got to the QAP. So that'll come in July, so it'll be pretty sizable. It has a few years worth of data. And then, in the background, we're taking that data and a lot of historic data and using that to develop an updated CSM. I wouldn't expect anything on the updated CSM until later this year at the earliest. Yeah. And I guess in the meantime, continuing to do the regular monitoring that's described in the QAP.
Any questions on Copper Mountain? I'm moving on to Blacktail Creek riparian actions being performed by DEQ. Logan, I don't know if I saw you on. Daryl, I know you're on. Any updates from DEQ on Blacktail Creek?
I did not get anything from Logan, but this is Daryl, by the way. I'm not sure. I think Emma has some information on some submittals. Emma, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, this is Emma of the EPA. We reviewed, DEQ submitted their RD work plan, and we reviewed and provided comments back to it last week. So that was the latest, and I think we're still anticipating a TDI ER at some point here relatively soon from DEQ for the work that they conducted last summer.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Emma or Daryl on Blacktail Creek? Okay, moving on to Remedy Restoration. Wasn't certain if Jim was on or Kenny.
Yeah, I'm here. Josh, this is Jim Ford. Yeah, nothing new from a construction perspective. We're still expecting to go out to bid later this summer for the work that we've got, the fish passage work on the golf course, as well as a sewer line that's just upstream of the golf course on Blacktail Creek. So again, that's winter work, stream reconstruction. We're removing a bunch of soils, putting in a fish screen, and then building a ramp up and over the sewer line. So that all goes out to bid this fall, mow later in the fall, and then winter construction. So from a construction perspective, that's all we've really got going on.
Apologies, we had a glitch here. Do we have audio?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And Jim, this is Josh. I'm sorry. We had a big glitch happen here in the Kelly. We kind of got through. You were saying that the bid documents are going to go out in the fall, and then we cut out. Could you continue?
Yeah, I'll go through it really briefly again, Josh. Yeah, we've got actually we're going to go out to bid this summer, and then hopefully give a good amount of time for the selected contractor to mow in the fall, and then can start construction, early winter. It's mostly a winter project. Again, it's a fish passage project. We're putting in a fish screen. We're taking the irrigation pond in the golf course offline, so they can remove all their batten boards and all the impediments within the stream. And then we're building a sort of a rock weir structure over the sewer line south, upstream on Blacktail Creek, south of the golf course. So that'll all be going on winter, and that's really our only substantive construction project for this summer and fall.
Thanks, Jim. I have a question, just as an interested resident with the fish passages. Is there intent to, make sure it's like a native cutthroat population upstream of the passages? And
yeah. I mean, I could give you a whole good little presentation, not so much on the fish. I mean, Caleb would be the best for that, but on what we're doing and why. But yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. And we're trying to remove the irrigation pond on the golf course as sort of like a breeding ground for the non-natives, which can outcompete the cutthroats. So we're trying to take that offline and isolate that. So it'll give the cutthroats, more of a even playing field, if you will. We've got some data. Caleb has some data from some telemetry he did this year. So cutthroat are already making it through all these big obstacles. Not many of them, but a few are. So we feel like implementing these two components of this one project is really going to help, connect Upper Blacktail Creek with, a lot of the breeding grounds down in German Gulch. So.
Project. Thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim on ongoing NRD work or ongoing NRD work? Okay. Flashback to the agenda. Community engagement. I spoke to the construction notices that will post for Grove Gulch, Casey Street. And oh, this is a good one for the walking path, because we'll have the equipment, drill rigs on the walking path for some of that geotech associated with the potential slurry line. Make sure we have notices out there. Placing the wetlands is in progress, so I know that anything is needed there. Again, apologies for this dated agenda. Upcoming meetings, presentations, and events. I think I mentioned that I presented to the council commissioners last week, just kind of a brief update on the repository science study and RDRA progress. I'm hoping to find time that works for both myself and CTEC to get back on their agenda, maybe next month. We'll see, I suppose. Any other upcoming presentations or events want to flag today? Okay. Eric, Abby, and I did have a meeting with Billy Marinovich at Pioneer Technical Services to see where we're at with the story map. And I think we just were importing a few updated graphics to that. We'll be close to a soft launch, I would say, by the end of the month, maybe the first week in June. And really one of the primary purposes of the story map is to provide the community a place to go see what traffic impacts may be going on. So, for example, once we get going on Gulch, you zoom into the story map. In the construction activities section, you'll be able to see if, trucks entering signage is posted along Gulch, or, maybe when we get down in future work where we're replacing the culverts on Upper Silver Creek, right at the intersection of Caw and George, maybe northbound is closed for a few days as we implement that work. So we hope it's a useful tool to the community where they can go and see what any anticipated traffic impacts may be during any portion of the work that'll be going on the next several years. So we'll keep people posted on when that gets published, and we might do it quietly for a while to make sure we get the kinks ironed out. Any questions, comments on community engagement? Okay. It's time for roundtable activities. Including remarks, any other items that we need to be progressing, or any other work activities of EPA first.
Yeah, this is Emma from EPA. I think don't have much else to add. I'm glad that we've had our technical scrums back up and running, and I think we can just keep some of that communication up and going. And as we're providing comments back to you, or you're providing comments back to us, I think just keeping that chain of communication open. So if there's questions on the comments that we're providing, we hear those before we receive comments back. And yeah, I think there's a lot ongoing, and certainly too, if there's strict, I think it was mentioned when contractors are trying to get into the field by this date, please communicate that. I know it's oftentimes you put it in your cover letters. Please communicate it verbally to me too, and we'll really highlight that, because that can help dictate our review schedules and how we're coordinating and prioritizing things that come our way. So yeah, I think I'm excited that I think we're getting very close on Grove Gulch, and I think there's a lot of really exciting work coming our way, and that you guys are all doing this year. So yeah, that's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Evan. Daryl?
Yeah, this is Daryl Reed, EQ. I have nothing really to update, but just wanted to thank all the hard work that the teams are putting in to this project and have put in over the years. And let's see if we can get something built soon.
Sounds good. Jim?
Yeah, I don't really have much more than what I already said, Josh.
Brandon?
No, I don't have anything further to add, Josh.
Okay. And I think I talked sufficiently, so I don't have much else to add. A lot of work going on. I appreciate everybody's efforts. So yeah, by the end of this year, I think when we have 100% documents for Higgins East and Buffalo Gulch, and we get those IFCs done and next year. I think progress will be very evident. We'll be all very busy. So if that's possible, so. Thanks for everybody's time on the phone today.
Joe Griffin does have his hand raised, so.
Joe, yeah. Joe?
Yeah, Josh, I just wanted to go back. Sorry, I didn't jump in. Community engagement and CTEC already had its April meeting. We got an update on MR's operations from Mark Thompson, but it looks like our June meeting will be June 11th, and we would like you, Josh, to give us an update on progress. So
I think,
sorry,
I think that would work great. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Off the top of my head, yes.
Okay, thanks.
I think the last thing I wanted to just add is, so June 18th would be the next one of these. And we'll have to, I think we're gonna have Catherine send out a placeholder for it. And I think we didn't do great about coordinating on agenda prior to this meeting this week. So we'll try and be better for next month as a team.
We're doing the, what Tuesday of the month are we doing? It's June 18th, right?
It's the third
Oh,
Tuesday.
the third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
What Tuesday were you thinking?
I thought they were always the fourth, and to be honest with you, I was kind of
Surprised.
prepared for today.
Okay.
But you know, I like to
Tuesday is better.
just as to, I wouldn't mind just kind of progressively moving it up, so it's like the first Tuesday of every month.
Okay.
'Cause that's where we had it.
Right.
I mean, we slipped and we just try to get it back on the schedule.
Yeah.
So whatever we manage it, whenever you want it to be, that's fine. You know, we'll be here, so.
I think at this point,
Yeah, let's do that.
we could try and move it up to the 11th too and make that little small step.
I just don't know if we'd have much to say. about
Right.
that.
Yeah. Especially as, okay, well, let's stick with the 18th then, and, or we could do the opposite. We could go to the 25th and then the next, like, move down to the first. Yeah.
Let's do the move up. Let's do the 18th.
Okay. Great. Well, yeah, we'll send out the invite, and we appreciate everyone on the phone for coordinating with the technology issues today.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good week.